Okay, well, hello everyone. I hope the sound is good. Let's see, I might bring the mic closer. Okay, so I'll get started. Just tell me if you can, if the sound is good. Okay, great. Thank you. Help, Helcio Alex, maybe. Yes, sorry if I got that name wrong. Okay, so in the thumbnail, if you saw the thumbnail, there was a little problem, a question there about this board position. And actually, all three moves that we're showing were fairly good. So just to show you that, let's see. So this was the game move. Or I could have played here. That's a Joseki, so obviously it's not bad. This move, is that where I put it? It's okay, but like playing here, or I had, looking at it now, it looks like I played there, but I thought maybe I'd play it here. This is a move that can be played to control the center, and so it's good. Thanks everyone for commenting on the sound. That works, so that's good. But I chose to play here, so this is I wouldn't say the other two moves are outright bad. In fact, this one is a Joseki, so it's supposed to be good. But it does leave the 3-3 point open here. So there's some weakness in territory. And it does also have the weakness of whites playing here, which can erase the side. So for instance, stuff like this can happen. This is one way that white can later try to invade the right side. Or sometimes black will allow white to connect underneath. I would advise black to do this earlier in the game, just to keep control of the rest of the board. So this is one way that black can deal with that, but white does get to scoop out the territory. So there are issues with this area in any case. So I chose to play here, which is kind of the modern way of doing it. So people like to play the large nice move and do that. So let's just go back to the beginning. And there's a kind of an interesting story I have about this game. Because just before I played it, well, a few weeks before maybe, but I was making a lesson for a Go magazine, and they wanted something that involved playing away or playing a tenuki. And they wanted an opening lesson. And I thought it was a bad idea because generally it's a bad idea to play away in the middle of a Joseki or something like that. But I came up with this opening. So in this opening, I think people were picking it up in the comments, but black is playing a lot of stones on the fourth line. And something that's sort of so obvious that most people just sort of forget it as they get stronger is that while most opening moves are played on the third and fourth lines, the difference is relatively simple in that usually a move on the third line is going to be advantageous in taking territory, while a move on the fourth line is going to be advantageous in getting influence towards the center and the sides of the board. So this is kind of a textbook example of that. And so I played this opening with the idea that I would be attacking, and I wanted to attack. And the whole idea of this opening is that black is inviting white into the side. So when I play here, I'm inviting white more into the left side than the right side because I have played a move on the right side. I'm inviting white to try to attack that black group in the top left. And I have ideas about how I'm going to deal with the following fight and use it to start a large-scale attack on white. And that works because I played a lot of moves that are on the fourth line. So I've given white 2 territories. So when you give your opponent territory like this, white gets automatically something like 15 points in the corner. So white already has close to 30 points of territory in these 2 groups. And when you give your opponent the territory like that, generally you're getting something back. So it's not as if I've played any bad moves or my opponent's played any bad moves, but we've made this trade-off where my opponent gets more territory and I get more influence, which can be potentially used to attack or to build a moyo. So I have ideas of doing that. And to talk about my opponent for a bit, Kato Atsushi, actually, in a previous version of the Kisei tournament, he was in the league for, I think it was 5 times. So 4 years in a row and then once again after that. So he's quite a prominent player in that way. At that time, the Kisei League was just the one league. So it was the final, I think it was 9 players who were playing a round-robin league to choose who would challenge the champion. And so he was in the top 10 players in Japan for a period there, in that particular tournament. And it's the same Kisei tournament, although the structure of the tournament is very much different now, in which they have an S League, which is about 6 people, I think, and A League below that. So S is probably for super or special, one of those two. I don't even know which is supposed to be. And the A League was the next one, which is again something like 6 players. And then there's a B League below that, which is slightly, I think they have 2 B Leagues, which are equal to each other, and there's slightly more players. And then there's a C League, which is 32 players. Those of you who have to do with tournaments would know that 32 is a number that can be divided into 5 rounds, and you get one perfect record. If you play the winners against the winners, then if you play 5 rounds with 32 people, you end up with just one player who has a perfect record. And so that's how they get a winner for the C League. And in front of, before you play the C League, you have to play this FT tournament. So that FT, I think it stands for first tournament. And this is 5 rounds. So I'm in the 3rd round of this. I previously showed you a game I played in the 2nd round. And so that was a pretty difficult game for me. It was I made a mistake early on and a bit painful. I was behind throughout the game, actually until the final move, in which I gained a point and won by half a point in that game. So I was very lucky to win that game. This time it's going to be a bit more fun because I played a fairly good game. And in a way, I actually had this opening prepared because of the magazine I was talking about earlier. They wanted me to make a lesson for amateur players, for weaker players, about an opening where black plays away. So playing away and sacrificing stuff is one way to do it, but it's a bit tricky in execution. So I found this opening where black has stones that are high up on the 4th line. You note that black also played the star points in the corners. So black does have more potential towards the center and the sides, and less potential relatively to the territory in the corners, because white can invade at any point. So I'm inviting white to invade the left side, which he did by playing here. And I have ideas about how I can attack. And I thought this was actually a pretty good opening for people to learn, because with this joseki here in the upper left, this joseki here, once we've gotten this far, and if we get into a running fight, it's relatively easy to deal with, in that the number of moves, the number of shapes you have to know, there's just a couple of points, really. So like if you get into a joseki like the 3-3 point joseki, so if white plays here, for instance, if you get into this joseki, then sometimes you have to deal with the flying daggers, which is, that would be this one, right? So if you get into this one, it involves a ladder, at least one ladder. Actually, depending on how you play it, there's more than one ladders that you have to know. And there's these complicated variations that virtually they filled well, just for starters, they fill 1/4 of the board. So they fill that whole block of 1/4 of the board, and they spread out to the rest of the board. Players who are really very knowledgeable about this Joseki will know variations, will have memorized variations and understand them. Variations that go up to close to 100 moves. So it's really complicated. I don't really advise people to get into this Joseki. And it doesn't really work for white very well when the ladder favors black. So we're looking at a ladder that heads in this direction. So white's not going to do that anyway, probably. So this kind of thing actually could happen, where black ends up playing the move on the side and does have a large area here. So this would be a close to even result. And white does have a lot of territory. So it would be a game in which actually humans, even professional human players, usually do not feel so comfortable with white, because it's really tough to invade these areas and live with everything. Whereas AIs would usually give white an even chance to win, because they're relatively comfortable about jumping into the territory. And you see the computers do really crazy looking stuff where white will invade the left side, and then when it looks like it's going to die, white plays away and sometimes comes back to it, and just hopping all over the board. It's very hard to get a human logic that explains what an AI is trying to do in a board position like this. So it can get very complicated and difficult. More difficult for white than it is for black in most cases. So he invaded here. So this is a very human move in that respect. Okay, let's see if I can catch up with the comments here. Yes, I studied Japanese as I was studying Go in Japan, and I was about 14 years old. Okay, so let's get back to the game. Feel free to ask questions in the comments, and if I catch them, I will try to answer. So white played here. So white is trying to attack the black group, and there's various moves that have been played by black in similar positions when white attacks like this or tries to start a running fight. And the move that I would suggest is best is this one. So this is a point where black would probably be thinking of playing one of these two moves. So it's either this one or this one. And the fact that black does have two stones lined up here, it makes it easy for black to make a two-space jump. So actually, some players just don't see the difference between the meaning of these two moves, but they're actually very different. And that this move, it works more like in a position such as the right side here, where black already has a relatively strong position. So black is already sort of staking out some ownership of that right side. It's not black territory, but black is starting to build a framework on it. So this is an area where black could be free to play this jump, which takes more space. It's just the fact that it's one more line in this direction. It's making this center area that much bigger. And black's next move locally would be sometimes this one, which is, again, the fact that the black stone at 1 is closer to the white group in the lower right corner makes this follow-up a more active, a more aggressive move. So it's a stronger attack. So that's how this move works when black has a position that is relatively strong on the right side. But that's not the case in the upper left here, where these black stones don't have a base, and there's some white stones on the other side of them. So they're relatively weak. And in this case, I'm going to say you should play here. So the reason this is better is that if white plays something on this side, for instance, then black will play here. And when black does this, these two black stones create a little space that sort of belongs to black. So if we follow it up with this sequence, black has a little space here, which I would usually consider to be an eye. So black sort of has an eye there, and a potential eye on this side, probably a potential eye somewhere on this side. So black is already very close to having what I would call a living group. So it's not as if you can actually see the two eyes there. But black does have that one eye in this area, which is really important. It makes it a strong black group. So one reason that I like playing on at 14G on the 6th line here is that when black plays the shoulder hit, it does give black a very solid shape there. So you can see again the contrast between this position in the upper left, where black has a relatively weak group that I want to make stronger, and the lower left, the lower right that is, where black has already a fairly strong group and so wants to play more actively. So that's the difference between these two jumps. Okay, so let's get back to the game. So I played here. So you can see I'm looking to play this shape, which would give me a good position there. It would also set up covering here, which would give me an area on the top side also. So it would expand my area there. So you might expect that instead of that, let's see, here I am. So if white jumps and I play here, you can see I'm sort of developing towards the center, and I'm still looking at potential to close off the side to a certain degree with moves like this. So I'm connecting up to my moyo on the right side is the important thing here. And so what white does very often in a shape like this is white jumps here. So this is an attempt to give black what we call heavy shape. So the idea is that although black can easily connect up, white is trying to give black a shape that does not so easily have eyes. So for instance, if something like this happens, you can see the black group is more kind of a straight line here with no eyes attached to it. So you have to be ready for this move. And so this is the second point. So like the first point I made here is that when white plays some kind of a pincer, when white gets a position on the side here, I'm going to say that black should jump at this point on the 6th line instead of jumping on the 5th line. So the second point I want to make about this is that you have to expect white to play here, and when white does this, it's very important to peep here once. So this point is important because right now, when white has tried to play here to play a forcing exchange, this white stone, the mark stone, is very important to white. White has to save it. But if we get to this position, white's not going to save this stone anymore. So like if black is going to peep now, white's probably going to play something like this. But even if we say white just connects underneath, this white stone is very, very unimportant. It's just like it would take black another move, and we still wouldn't be sure of it being an eye. But even if white allows the eye like this, that's a very inefficient way for black to be capturing that stone. And one eye, of course, is not good enough to have a living group. So it's just the one eye is not very efficient. So it's important for black to play this exchange at this stage when white has to save that white stone. So if white did not save it and protected the corner instead, then I would just be able to simply capture it. So that would be a lot more efficient for me. I'd probably play something around here. And yeah, it's just that I've gained a move basically. This move, it didn't accomplish anything. So white connects, and then I play here. So in this variation, by playing this exchange, it's very important because I've established push through on the 3rd line and a cut on the 2nd line. It is critical. Okay. So let's just talk about that cut on the 2nd line for a little bit. So it's not as if white's going to collapse completely. So if I push through and cut here, and it really depends on the position whether I'm going to cut on the right or the left. So it's a very subtle difference. But let's just keep it to this one just to keep things. Why don't we do it with the game variation? Let's say I push through and cut here. When white already has this stone at J16, I'm probably going to cut on the right side because the value of capturing here is relatively small. So when I do that, I'm not actually going to capture the corner because while I might sort of want to play this Atari, it puts my 2 stones in Atari, so I can't do that. It's not going to work. Can't play 2 moves, so I'm not going to play on both sides here. So what I do is I extend. White plays here, and I extend once more. And this is a point where white does have some variations, but like moves like this, they lose stuff on the outside, to say the very least. So white could play there and play one more move, and this would capture the black stones in the corner. But I would be getting something back with black 13, destroying white's eyes on the outside. So like, if I then played something like this, you can see white's group on the outside is looking a bit weak. So if we say white simply answers here, black plays, still black cannot really succeed with this move because white 12 is an Atari. So instead, I'm going to play from this side. And it's, okay, so it's like this. And black has 3 liberties and white has only 2. White can win the race to capture. That's not this way though. So you can see black has a cutting point at b14, which white is not getting to yet. Not in time in this case. So white has to play that now. And so at this point, black cannot push at a19 because that would put the 4 stones in Atari. Or black cannot play here either, obviously. So black can't do that. What black can do is black can capture this stone. And white cannot push at a19 either. So white has to back off here. And you can see black already has, in this case, black already has 2 eyes. So black has a living shape there. So this squeeze from the corner, not only does it reduce white's corner to the 8 points that white gets in capturing these 4 stones, but it does give black eye space on the side. And meanwhile, it's sort of killing this white group also. So it's very efficient. So that's how the squeeze works. It was a long sequence, but basically you just keep crawling into the corner like this up to the 2-2 point, and then you take the key point 11, and the rest is just a squeeze. So on the other hand, jumping ahead. So on the other hand, this one. So if white connects on the other side, then I do have some potential with this stone at 3. There's that stone at white. That's why white played J6, basically. J16. That's why white played this stone, is to take away the threat of this. So white's going to connect at 4, and I cannot do anything immediately. But I can imagine that at some point in the game, I'm going to be able to play this cut. And like it can set up some forcing moves like in this vicinity. We're going to see it come into play later in the game, actually. And with black's next move, because I play here. So again, if we assume this position, let's see, let's put it like this. Yeah. So when black played this move, so let's take it from this position. And if I follow this up with moves like this or like this, that stone at 3 is starting to put a lot of pressure on the white group. So like I probably cannot win the race to capture, but I'm going to be able to squeeze from the outside to a certain degree. So that's how it's supposed to work. And the fact that I have that potential cut at 3, when I play here, which might look like a bit of an adventurous move, when I play here, this is putting pressure on the white group because of that potential cut at f18. So white cannot really leave it. So when I play this, I'm really focusing on white's group on the left side. Because, for instance, if I had played something that might look a bit safer, such as a move like this, then white would be free to play something on this side. So white would be able to reinforce the group on the left. But when I play here, white has to deal with that group move on the top side. And there is the thing that if I sort of draw a line of black stones along this blue line here, then I am forming a moyo on the right side of the board. So that's sort of the final stop on the road to a good game for black. So that's my plan there, my game plan. So he pushes through and cuts. So this is expected. And I have to reinforce the group on the left. So that's what I'm doing throughout the whole process here. And white has to capture that stone. Again, if white does something more active like this, and we assume something like this, you can see that I'm going to be able to get some forcing moves here. So for instance, something like this. And by saving this stone, by stopping white from capturing it in a ladder, I can take the advantage in this fight. So in this fight, all of these stones that I've played in the area that are sort of exerting influence towards the center of the board are going to start participating. And although the local position is a bit tricky, you might think, the fact that I have all this power on the right half of the board, it means that it's going to be good for me. Okay, someone said, is that the AlphaGo shoulder hit? No, but actually, it's probably Kato liked it, so it's close. Okay, Robert Shore is going to bed. Good night. Okay, great. So I just sacrificed the 1 stone, and white chose to capture. So this is actually a choice white had. Capturing is probably the better move. White could have connected. So this would have been a bit stronger towards the center and the right side, but it would give me, for instance, moves like this that would be threatening to escape out there, or even I could play this far. So stuff like this would be forcing, when I get back to the top side with something like this, it is sort of annoying for white. And again, we have to remember there's that potential cut at F2, F18 that is. So this could come into play also. So the weakness underneath caused by white connecting at 1 is a bit annoying. So he took. So when he takes, of course, later on I can play here in some cases. And so I still have some potential to sort of draw a line of black stones along somewhere around one of these 2 lines and complete a moyo on the right side. So that's, again, it's one of my goals in this opening. So for the time being, I have to attack these white stones. And up to this point, when I researched with Kato, actually, I was doing really well. So actually, the act of creating this opening with the purpose of making a lesson in a magazine for weaker players, I didn't actually come up with this exact variation, but the various shapes I played, such as this jump here, I had verified that they were the best moves by researching it and doing various variations that I found convincing. And I used Kato to do that. So I did have some background preparation there, which was not this exact variation, but it was close enough that I felt confident. So I'm almost computer perfect up to this point. And so this is where I played a very natural looking shape move. But it turns out it maybe wasn't the best move. So this is where the first place where I didn't play the Kato move. Pretty much like yeah. There's some fine points that didn't really bother me. I'm not going to talk about those, but yeah, I was doing fairly well up to this point, and there was a move that was different, and I was convinced. So does anyone want to guess where black should play in this board position? B11. B11 is a okay. I'll discuss that. P4. It's not okay. P4 is something that can be played at almost any time, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. D8. D8 is somewhat like the move I played. So it's as good as a 9-down, I'd say, but oh yeah, E8 is the move I played. Okay, that's O Senshi in Twitch. Okay, F11. F11 is pretty good, but it's a bit too close to the black wall. Okay, lower side, G10. G10 is starting to look like very much like the correct move. Okay. And O10. O10, that's way on the other side of the board. So, yeah. Tengen, yeah. Tengen, yeah. So I think a lot of people here are pretty close to the right answer. And they, yes, O Senshi is saying attack with the Keima. And I like that because that's what I did. So just to show you my move, what I did was here. So I'm thinking of a fairly direct attack on the white group on the left. Maybe I should have given that as a hint. And we're going to see what the problem is in the game. But just to put it out here, the problem is that I will not succeed in surrounding this white group. So when I try to attack it from this side, and white breaks through the center, this is going to put some pressure on my group in the upper left, and it's going to reduce my space on this side. So I have to be focused on the fact that building a moyo on the right half of the board is probably what my goal should be in this position. So I want to have something relatively close to the weak white group on the left. So that's why I didn't play the tengen. James, yes, the tengen. That's a good move, but it's a bit too far from the white group. So that's why I'm not playing the tengen. But I do want to attack this group, but I want to do it from the center. So people who were saying moves like, moves like, someone was saying F11. Who was it who said F11? That's dubious status, F11. And I think someone else was saying it too. So this is sort of the right direction, but it's a bit too close to the black group. Someone was saying G10. This is probably, I'd call it maybe second best. It's probably better than the move I played, so it's better than a 9-dan in this case. And I forget who said that too. Sorry. Yeah. It's scrolled away. So, and this was not good. Let's just show you a few moves into the game. White played here, I played here, and when white played here. So like trying to enclose white with a move like this, it would be very dangerous. So something like this might happen. And if white gets to play at 8, then white has some ice space there. And the cut at 6 is a very important cut. It's coming to a key point. So it's a fight that I don't really feel so comfortable with, even when I look at it now. And so trying to enclose white is, it is troublesome. And in this case, white has gotten out. So that's what I mean when I say that it's allowing white further towards the right side. And all of these white stones lined up here, they are putting a little bit of pressure on this black group. So the black group is not 100% alive. And that's going to become an issue later in the game. So, to give you the correct answer, according to Kato, is that black should play here. So that's very close to some of the moves. It's very close to some of the moves that were suggested. So those of you who are sort of in this area, you can probably feel proud of finding a move better than the 9-dan did. So if black plays here, obviously because of all those black stones lined up in a wall, white's not going to get through here. So white's going to play something like this. And this was the variation shown. So after this, it got a bit crazy. So I'm going to leave it at 9 moves. White has one eye here. This looks like an eye to me, but does not yet have 2 eyes. Okay, and so this is working, and you can see I've made a little space here, which is in the process of this attack. White's not going to have any trouble making it alive, but I'm going to be trying to sort of build an area here with this space on the left connecting up to black's moyo on the right side. And the fact that I have this space that I've sort of drawn a circle about, let's just say it's this space. The fact that I have this space, it makes my group strong. So I have a strong base with to make the moyo. And one other facet of this idea is that the only territory I really care about on the bottom side is this lower left corner territory. And the problem with the way I played the game is that in a position like this, the right side was more important than the lower side. And that's because this white group is looking so solid. So white has this strong group in the lower right, which is, it's a very solid, it's a living group. It means that when we compare it to larger areas like this, the lower side is relatively small. So I've spent a lot of moves, 3 moves here, to build a wall, which is pointed in the direction of making a moil here. But the fact that white has a strong group on the right, which cannot be attacked, and the fact that there's obviously a weak point in the 3-3 point, makes it relatively difficult for me to finish this territory, to make it into a territory. So that's the difference between the lower side and the right side. The right side is easier to make into a successful moil. But actually, I'm having fun today because throughout the game, I'm never going to be losing, really. And so I played a fairly good game on the whole. And I'm not really bugged too much by the mistakes I made. Although learning about why this was not the optimal move was that was a great lesson I learned from this game. It was really interesting to sort of figure that out. So I play like this. I'm still chasing the white group. In this case, it's going to be very difficult for white to make 2 eyes. So it's relatively difficult because white's connected with this knight's move. So that's sort of the tendency I had to play in a fashion that is taking away white's eyes. Where the other variation where I play here is a variation where I'm allowing white to live. So if white plays something like this now, the white group is going to be alive on the left side in itself. And the game variation, I think you're sort of seeing my tendency to like to have the option of going for the kill at some point. Because I have this peep here I can play. And that means white doesn't really have much potential for an eye in this general area. And if white plays on the side here, again, white can only make one eye, really. So like if white plays here, black plays here, and we just have a sequence like this, white's shape on the left side there is just a one-eyed shape. It's very difficult. It's relatively difficult for white to make it into 2 eyes. Like, while I say that, I'm actually seeing a variation where white can make seki. Yeah, so I'm... sorry. So this is going to be a seki, but provided white can protect this point. So pretty likely it's going to be a seki, but that's really painful, just because white's giving away so much in the corner. So like then white would have to deal with stuff like this and stuff like this, in which I would take away the whole corner probably, or maybe I just jump in at 16. So there's all these, so it's relatively difficult for white to live, but white is outside. So white is poking out here, and it's not going to die outright. So what white is doing with this move here is obviously white is reducing the moyo on the right, so this area. So white is reducing this area. And also is looking at the weakness here. So the knight's move has a cutting point here that white can attack. So white's actually looking at potential to attack this black group still. So trying to put some pressure on you there. So I played here. Right. And so earlier when I asked how to attack the white group, let's just take a peek at that position again. So in this position, I was asking how black should attack the white group. And there was someone who was saying B11. And so that would be this move. And it's a bit premature to play it right now. But it is an important point. So when I say that, I'm talking more about the game position that we arrived at here. So this is the second lesson I got from this game when I reviewed it with AlphaGo, in which it didn't like my move here. So like it didn't like this move, not this move, this one. It didn't like my playing here. I had a reason to play this move, and it didn't really drop my score too much, so I'm still more or less satisfied with it. But I was, again, impressed by the correct answer, which is actually B11. So whoever said B11 was correct if you play it in this position, and slightly it was premature in the board position where I was posing that question. So what this move does is it is sort of threatening the knight's shape here to a certain degree. So there's that kind of attack. It's making eyes for the black group while taking away white's eyes on the left side. So the part of that which is making an extra eye for the black group in the center here, it's really important because when white played this stone on the right, white already has ideas of cutting black off with this move. So the fact that white is sort of threatening me to a certain degree, it adds value to the process of making eyes on the left side here. So like if I get an extra eye on the left side in this area, I sort of have a potential eye here. So I'm not going to die if I get that eye on the left side. So that's important. And it's taking away white's eye space also. So I would expect... So this is what I didn't like. The fact that I have these two knight shapes, which are sort of weak. And so the fact that white gets to play this move that sort of attacks that, and I would answer and I wouldn't find this move. So this is was given to me by Kato. So I wasn't going to find that move probably. And now I see this, it's okay, I guess. I'm going to be continuing to attack the white group. And in this case, it's not so clear-cut about a moyo on the right side. That moyo is mostly erased to a certain degree by this white stone here. But I will be getting something back on the lower side. So in this case, I'll be getting smaller territories in more areas. And it's still good for black. So I played here. And white played here. So this is where the kind of temperature of the game changes a bit. Where the game changes a bit. And white is... The intensity of white's idea to attack the black group on the left has increased. So if white had, for instance, played something like this, maybe it would have been more reasonable. So this would be sort of taking white one step closer to being alive. So now this white group would have one eye. But again, if we just lay down that same variation here, where black does something like this, in order to live, white would be, let's put the black stone on this side, for instance. In order to live here, white would be making some kind of sacrifice. So like if white uses this move, white's losing a lot towards the corner. Or if white plays moves like this, black's getting some black's territory on the side is actually much more solid than it was before. So I'm getting a better territory in the lower left area. And so any of these sequences where white tries to live on the left side, they will be very painful for white. So there's a lot of negative value if white tries to live on the left side. It's positive for black, that is. That said, if white plays here, white is... Like, if it becomes really necessary, white is alive. So, otherwise, if white adds a stone to it, for instance, something like this, if white adds another stone to it, then it's comfortably alive. Then white doesn't have to do any of that painful stuff to be alive. So it does improve the position of the white group. So this would be a calm way for white to play, still working with his territory, his 15 points here, probably more like 20-25 points on the top side and a few points on the left side. That's already, so it's 45 I need 50 points or more to win the game. So in this case, it would be actually more pressure on me to win this game. Although the computer was giving me a good score, it would be relatively difficult. So when he plays here, what's the meaning of this move? White is going to sacrifice something on the right side. It's not as if this move is going to work as an invasion. So when white plays this move, white is actually setting up a kind of a squeeze where white is getting, you see white didn't go this way. This would just be very difficult for white because I'm not going to lose that ko. I have ko threats in the upper left corner here. So I could even start the ko immediately, or I could play something like this. The ko is, white's at a great disadvantage in this ko, where white has this weak group on the left side, and black has ko threats in the upper left corner. And white doesn't have any good ko threats. Like when I say good ko threats, I say ko threats that you can play without losing into, or ko threats that you can play that you wouldn't wish you hadn't played later in the game. Those are what I would call bad ko threats. Ko threats that black has in the upper left corner are moves that black would like to play at some point anyway, pushing through and cutting, asking white which side white's going to take on. It's a profitable exchange in many cases. So black doesn't have any problem playing ko threats. White doesn't want to get into this for a reason. So white extended, and so this was the whole idea, to get some forcing moves from above, making a bit of a wall here so that white could cut black off. So it's very logical in the sequence here. It's not as if he's playing moves that contradict each other. The problem with this is basically the idea that after sacrificing all this territory, he has to have a very good attack against this black group on the left. And it's sort of borderline, so it's exciting. Because like if I had played b11 when Kato wanted me to play b11, then I would have been alive. But since I have not played that, then I potentially can get into trouble. Okay, so this is how the whole sequence here, the white sequence, is very logical. It's making sense. And so here, yeah. And he's cutting me off from the corner. So playing here, it might seem a very slow move, but actually it's powerful because it's filling the liberties of this black group. So he's still making use of the two white stones. So if white continues to play there with moves like this, you can see he's squeezing me in the corner. So I can't allow that. That fact makes it necessary for me to answer from the corner. And still, even now, if he gets to play this move and moves like this, you can see as white adds stones, white will be attacking the black group in the corner. So black has to be aware of that and be playing moves from the corner. But that does mean that my group on the left is starting to get isolated. Okay, so this is the head of two stones, and I push through here. So you can see in this exchange, I'm looking at the damezumari of these white stones. So I'm looking at a potential squeeze here. And for instance, if white plays this move, which I was suggesting earlier, it's just not working because I can capture the 4 stones. So that's why white's not doing that. But actually, the other thing I was looking at was the squeeze here. And this would be very painful for white also. So in this case, this would be good enough to win the game for me also. Just all of these, well, that might be overdoing it. Let's just play the hane here. And then I could just live on the left side. I say it as if it's easy. It's actually not a problem for black. But we'll be going into that in more detail later in the game as I get into real trouble. Okay, so back to the game. So white had to connect here. And I'm still looking at the potential squeeze. So I can squeeze here. Only it's not quite as good in this case. Because now, white's going to play here. So that's a much better shape for white towards the top side and the upper right corner. So although I've gained a lot by cutting off the 3 white stones on the right, white is getting something back towards the corner. So I didn't want to do it that way. And instead, I played here. So this is improving my corner territory and improving the potential cut at, well, M15 and N16. Ah, yes, people are talking about the weakness in Kato. Yeah, I don't really, I didn't find it exciting because it involves a lot of moves that a strong Go player would not play. So I should probably say there was a weakness in Kato in which it was not paying attention to the liberties of a group when the group gets big enough. So, so the idea is that you would allow Kato to surround some huge territory, and then it would just assume that the borderline of its territory was alive. So you could play moves filling the liberties basically after the game was over, you could fill the liberties of that group, and eventually Kato would just be playing passing, and you could eventually capture the group. So that's my understanding of how it worked, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can fix it. But it's a kind of, it seemed to be a kind of a tedious process in any case. So I wasn't excited by it. People who were familiar with computers, more knowledgeable about it, might correct me on that, actually. So because I didn't really investigate it too deeply. So I'm willing to be corrected if I was wrong. Yeah, but I didn't. So that was my opinion on that. But these computer programs, they have loopholes all the time. So like Leela Zero was famous for its weakness about ladders, and even Katago and the more advanced computers, they have weaknesses in local tactical positions that humans are actually very good at. So like Smigo-like positions, computers can make some surprising mistakes. And they're usually in places that are sort of obvious to us. So it's not a problem when I'm researching a position, because I can immediately see what's going wrong when something like that happens. On the other hand, the positions are so tactically complicated that if a human were to play a computer and try to take advantage of those weaknesses, then the human would probably fall apart long before that tactical position happened. So it's very difficult for us to get into a relevant position. And this weakness that was being discussed here in the chat, where you fill the liberties of a huge group, it actually is something that people can do, because it involves giving the computer a winning position to start with. So it's and it's something that happens after that. So the computer is going to cooperate with you in setting up a position that works with that loophole. But I wouldn't be surprised if they found a way to get rid of it. Okay, so back to the game here. I'm threatening the cut by pushing through it M16, and white dealt with it here. So this is improving white's position there. It doesn't completely get rid of the weakness at O13. So I can still play here and squeeze like that and cut the white group off. So this can be done. And again, I can push through here. So like in a sequence somewhat like this, I would be able to cut the white group off, but probably not a good idea for me because I have bad shape on the other side. So it's probably not working very well. And yeah, so I'm not going to do that yet. But what I can do, so for instance, if white had not played that, I would have pushed through and cut here. And use this as a kind of a final attack to kill the white group. So this would be a killer attack. And white's just collapsing already. So pushing through it 2 and 4 is the real threat here. And white dealt with it by adding a stone there. And so I played here. So this is the one move in this game. Like, it's really difficult to play a perfect game. I talked about some mistakes that Kato found in my game that like didn't really drop my score very dramatically, and I still had a winning position. So I wasn't really bothered by those mistakes. I'm sort of disappointed with this move, which was sort of based on a misconception that I underestimated the danger that my group was in. So that group in the upper left, I was just thinking it would be easy to live. And I was inviting white to attack it. I probably should have, if I was going to play locally, I should have played here to put more pressure on the white group. The game move, it was not forcing towards the white group. Or otherwise, this would be, I had multiple ways, according to Kato, I had multiple ways of winning the game. So like this move is the simplest one I could find. I probably would not have played that, but I could have slided at B11 still, and it was still a viable way for me to live on the side. But this is the easiest way for me to make 2 eyes. And it's also pretty good as far as territory is concerned, because in this sequence here, black is going to get into the white corner territory to a certain degree. So this variation here, if I play at b17, I'm going to get an eye in the corner. And otherwise, I can make an eye here. So I've already established, at this point, I've already established 1 eye for the black group. And if white does stuff like this would be an attempt to kill me anyway. But this, yeah, it's not going to work anyway. So like in this variation, I can get an eye on this side instead. And in the center here, I have a forcing move here. I have a forcing move here. And I sort of have an eye space here. These all add up to sort of 1 eye in the center. So I'm expecting to get 1 eye in the center. So having 1 eye on the left side here suffices to give me a living shape. So I'd say that at this point, I'm already alive. Yeah, something like this. I'm alive. So this would be a way for me to live with the group. And I would say that white's attack has been a failure, because I got this huge territory while white was trying to attack my group on the left. So it's close to 40 points. So it's a big territory I got. My territory is pointing out into a space that white was trying to make territory in. So I'm reducing the potential white territory there. And a lot of my moves have been spent in this direction, which means I actually got some territory here also. So the fact that I'm emerging from this relatively unscathed, as far as my group in the upper left is concerned, after playing a few moves in the lower left, now they're sort of paying off in their own way. So I've got a lot of extra profit while white was trying to counterattack, and white did not actually make any progress. So white's still stuck somewhere below 40 points. Well, I've caught up with that just on the right side of the board. So this would have been good enough, and I understand that, and I'm sort of kicking myself for playing. Let's see, where am I? I jumped ahead again. For playing this move, surrounding the white group, virtually forcing white to play this move, which puts my group in trouble. So this is where it got a bit exciting. Okay. In Twitch, Mungkwe is saying it's similar to what I'm saying, but not quite about this is a comment about my comments about the weakness in Kato. It's similar to what I said, but not quite about the big group being big, more of it having a loop within it. So for what it is, yeah, that's probably more precise description of the weakness, I suppose. So I'll just leave it at that. Oh, the time settings. One Dragon is asking, what are the time settings? That's in Twitch. They're 3 hours a piece, and we have 5 minutes overtime. So it's 5 sets of 1 minute after we run out of time. So now I have to live with this group. So everything sort of depends on this group surviving at this point. And I thought I had a way. It got a bit tricky. Okay, in the chat in YouTube, people are talking about the Hoinbo tournament, which is named after one of the schools that promoted Go hundreds of years ago. They were one of the 4 schools of Go, and the most prominent, I would say, the Hoinbo school. And they sold the name to a newspaper in the 20th century, when newspapers started to have an interest in sponsoring Go tournaments. And one of the newspapers was the Mainichi, what is now called the Mainichi newspaper. And they sponsored, it was the first professional tournament in a modern form. Before that, they had Jubango sets of 10 games that were played with Go Seigen and some other players most of the time. And they had various limited tournaments like that. But Hoinbo, I think it was the first tournament where they started to have all of the professionals participate. And it was structured quite like the Kisei used to be structured, where they had a league at the top, and they had mostly a knockout tournament up to the league. So they finished the tournament with a round-robin league. In the Hoinbo, I think it's 8 people. And they're still sponsoring the tournament, only they had to reduce the sponsorship. So the prize money and stuff like that is going down. They're continuing the tournament, but it is unfortunate they had to reduce the prize money. And the Mainichi newspaper is one of the it's one of the less successful of the big Japanese newspapers, and so that was the reason they had to reduce their support. We depend a lot on the newspapers. They're the biggest sponsors in Japan, so it's they're very important to us, and it is unfortunate that they are obviously in this era of the internet, and me doing this on YouTube, I say that, but in this era of the internet, it does make it difficult for newspapers. Okay, just let me continue with the game here. My group here is in danger of getting killed. So what I did was I pushed through and cut here. And again, I'm trying to set up that squeeze from the corner. So let's just take another look at that. So if white plays here, and black cuts here, I can't play the Atari because that's going to put my own 2 stones in Atari. It's actually an Atari that white doesn't really want to play either, because that 5 is filling white's own liberty. So this makes it a bit more difficult for white to win the race to capture, and it would turn the corner into something like a Seki probably. So that's a bad Suji move, and white's going to play 5 immediately, and then play a Hana. So white's going to keep this Atari in reserve for if black plays 8, white can play the Atari, and then 8 is filling black's own liberty. So white easily wins in this case. So I'm not going to play 8, and you can see how it was better for white not to play that Atari at the start point, because that's a valuable liberty for white that black has to fill here. So again, we get into a variation like this, where white has to play the cut here. In a position like this, where white might be thinking of trying to kill the black group, maybe let's have white play here. It's a fun variation where white can throw in here and win the semi. So in some cases, like we could make a life and death problem where it was significant for white to be throwing in a b14 here. But in this real game situation, it's really relatively easy for me to live. So in this case, that squeeze in the corner, not only is it giving me enough space for 2 eyes, it's also killing the white group on the outside. So it's really bad for white to allow me to squeeze like that. So white didn't do that. So white's pretty much forced to connect in the corner. So I was counting on this forcing... Oh, sorry, I pushed through and cut here first. Yeah, so this was threatening the white group. So if white leaves it, then I can play here next. And then here, that's an Atari. White has to take one of the black stones. So it doesn't really matter which black stone white takes first, because white has to take both of them. And I get to squeeze here, and I get to squeeze here, and the white group is just dead. It doesn't really matter where I play. So if we think of this as a semi, white can probably get 5 or 6 liberties, but I don't want to try counting black's liberties. There's too many. I did count them. There's more than 10 already. So it's probably more like 12 to 15 dominants. It depends how they play. So it's an easy win for black. So that's what I'm threatening with this move. And so white plays the squeeze. You can see him playing the Atari here. There's a meaning to that. Usually you would just have white playing here. He doesn't want to give me the time to do this. So if I play here, and then I play here, here, and here, I get to capture those cutting stones. Or if white answers here, I get to squeeze before white can capture the 2 stones. Or if white does it this way, I'm still squeezing, and if white captures the 2 stones, I get the tail. So these are cutting stones, which would save my group on the left. So that's why white is playing an Atari here, to get the Atari here at Sente, and now white has a living shape. So just to mention this move here, if white had played here, it would not be a living shape, because I could play here and here. And just locally, it's not alive. And actually, it's a bit dangerous for white, because in some cases, white won't have time to play any forcing moves that change this. So it's actually in danger of getting killed. So yeah, so white played here, white has a living shape. In this case, white is 100% alive. All right. So yeah, just to go through that variation again, in this case, when black does something like this, white can at any point make the extra eye here, so it's alive. So I played here. So that it was this Atari that I wanted to play. I was getting some more territory. Not really necessary, because I'm winning by territory already. So maybe a bit greedy. And I played here. So this is the move that I was counting on. This is the move that I thought would give me a life. So the idea here, let's see, where am I? I didn't make a variation from. Oh, the idea here is that I'm threatening to cut white off, pushing through here. And I'm not going to talk about this too much, because this area is going to be a problem at the end of the game. I'm going to be showing off some tessage. So I'm threatening to cut there. If white answers like with this, I've sort of established an eye in the center of the board. So for instance, the easiest, the most no way, there's the safest way to do it is this, and I'm threatening white on the left, and then to play this forcing move and this way. And you can see how this stone here, this stone that I've played at G15, is securing the eye for me. So it's stopping white from doing something like this, in which case white would be able to, if that stone at G15 was not there, white would be able to cut at this point and make it a false eye. So I thought that this move would be giving me, this move here, would be giving me that eye at this point in the center. And just to make a variation for that previous one, and this variation when I play here, if white plays something like this to take away my other eye, I still have an eye at G13, but also I can break white's position on the left. So here, white's going to be in trouble. White's going to be in trouble because if white plays here, I can just push through and cut. And if I cut here, the resulting race to capture is going to be really easy for me. It's going to be an easy win for black to capture this white group in the center. Or if white covers here, I can play here before I run out of liberties, and cut before I run out of liberties. And the point is, squeezing here, it's not going to do white any good, because it's this group in the center that I'm going to try to capture. And it doesn't have enough liberties to beat my group in the upper left. Or if this, let's see, white might be playing this way. In any case, it looks like I'm short of liberties, but white doesn't have time to actually take advantage of it. And so, like, in the end, in the end I get to cut white off somewhere. So it's actually a very strong attack against white's connection when I do black 4 and 6. So that's why 2 was forcing. So I thought that I was alive. Instead, white played here. Now this is a really tricky move. He's just trying to get some extra territory. So like it's a kind of an endgame tessage where he's threatening the cut here. Very annoying move. But I managed to control myself from doing something rash, and I just simply answered that. And so white has established some potential towards the 3-3. It doesn't really work simply, but there's some potential towards the 3-3 with these 2 white stones on the right. And sometimes, like if white gets a stone at L18, white can be thinking of extending at Q18 instead, or connecting at O18. So there's some potential endgame profit attached to these two forcing moves that white played. They're not really mainstream because the game sort of depends on white killing black on the left side, but they're annoying, just annoying. So white plays here. So instead of playing this move, which would have allowed me to live with this exchange and then just the eye in the center, this would have been easy for me. He's actually trying to take that eye away. So if I continue with the same sequence, then white would be able to take that eye away with white's 6. So maybe I'm in trouble. Okay, Hugh Sam is asking. Yeah, sorry, I've been a bit neglected of the chat here today. I was sort of involved with the game. Hugh Sam is saying, how do I show the games? What program do I... I'm actually using a server. This is OGS. And you can play Go on OGS. You can also have an SGF, what they call an SGF library, where you can upload your games. And I like the way it shows the board. And I like the way I can use various tools to mark up the board, as you have been seeing me doing. And it makes it easier for me to explain the game. So I use this system, which is on the net. It's OGS. So you can just search for OGS and you'll find it probably. It's OGS.com or something like that. And it's a free Go server. And so this is what I use. I like the way the Go board looks. And so white played here. So he's trying to kill me. And so instead of playing this move, which is relatively easy and simple, I'm playing a move which is more focusing on potential forcing moves here. So like the idea is like I can play here and here. If white answers in this fashion, then I would be making a forcing move here. Maybe this is going to be forcing, maybe not. So like if I don't have a forcing move at 8 there, and let's just say I have that one eye in the center. So I do have that one eye in the center. I can play here. And this would be a ko. Or if I play here, and I get 2 hanais on the second line, that means I can play one of the hanking connections and be alive. This would be alive, because I can extend here. Or if white captures on this side. It depends on what's happening in the corner. In this case, I probably can squeeze. So in this case, I sort of have a forcing move at E15. So if white does this and this, then I can connect here and send in. Because I'm threatening to capture the 3 stones. It means I can squeeze. This would just be a disaster for white. And I would get the whole corner. So if white cannot play at 21, it means that I'm getting the corner. White has 5 liberties. I have 4 liberties on the right. So white's winning by 2 moves. That means that I do get enough room to get an eye in the corner. So for instance, something like this. I lose by a move. And that's because white pushed through at 23, but I still have enough room for that eye in the corner. So basically, I have potential to use the squeeze there to make an extra eye on the left side. And white would counter that by answering something like this. So like I was telling you, if white allows black to push through here, white's position there is going to fall apart. So that's why white has to play something on the left. If white plays here, then white can still kill the black group. So it would be something like this. And it was at this point that Kato was actually wanting me to sort of have a semi-eye with the white group on the left side. And I wasn't thinking of that. Not at all. But in this variation, I actually have a ko for 2 eyes because I have a forcing move here. If white ignores that forcing move, I can kill white's group on the right. So white has to answer 8 by connecting here on the right. And I can make an eye. I don't need to play that move. I can make an eye here. And the point is, well, this would be alive. And this would be a ko. So just disregarding some ideas I have about the top side there, which might look like a dangerous situation for white. That's interesting. It's stuff that's going to happen there later on in the game. There's also this ko I have in the center. I have plenty of ko threats. And so white played a more forceful attack against the black group. found something even more strong. White pushed through here. And this is giving up 2 stones. And when I say white's giving up 2 stones, that's because it would be a bad idea for white to push through here. White's position on the left is going to fall apart once more. So black pushes through here. White has no way to deal with this because, for instance, if white covers, this is threatening to capture the 3 white stones. So it would be a collapse. So black's 6 there was actually establishing a connection in the center, while threatening to cut white off at 7. Otherwise, like if white cuts here, these 3 stones have been saved, and I'm going to kill white on the left side. Or the center. I can kill one or the other. It works either way. And so white doesn't really have a good response to black pushing through here. So it's a bad idea for white to try to save the 2 stones. So he's sacrificing the 2 stones, and he's taking away my eye in the center. And this stone here is the key point that reduces that whole space to just the 1 eye. So I only have 1 eye. I'm about to... looks like I'm about to die, but I have an idea. So that's going to be a little question, a quiz for you. This whole process here, it doesn't make me alive. But the whole idea here was that I'm filling a liberty here. So I have ideas of attacking this white group. So that's that whole point of this whole sequence I played in the center, which ends up with me having just a dead shape, a 1 eye dead shape. That whole sequence was played as a process to get that stone at h14, which is filling a liberty. And now I have to deal, since I'm trying to attack white, I have to deal with this cutting point here. Fortunately, I can do that by playing here. And again, this is threatening to kill white on the right. So if I get to play here, then that white group is going to die. So white answered. So, does anyone have ideas about what's going to happen on the top side? So let's just give one relatively easy mistake. Would be to play that. I'll just give you one more move of the correct sequence. To start with, this would be a mistake, because if black plays here and white plays here, might look like black can sort of isolate that white group, but black's connection is too weak. So in this case, white would be able to squeeze from this side and just capture the black stone. So it's significant that white had an extra liberty here. So this is something that wouldn't be working for white in the case where I had played this point and was playing that ko there. There would be more liberties filled in that variation. But it doesn't work in this variation. So I can't do the knight's move. So just to take you one move forward into the game, the correct move is for black to push through, and white plays here. So G16 first is correct. That's ZYF4 from Twitch. And G18, okay. Someone wanted to play G18, Chunky Gecko. G18 doesn't work because white can play the diagonal move here, and those 2 black stones cannot escape out to the right. So I'm giving you this move, which is correct. Black plays here. And it's probably a bit complicated. So just as a my first hint, I'll give you a hint here. Poking out into the hole. This one doesn't work. That's H17 doesn't work because white just connects up here. So everything connects up and I can't capture it. So this is not working. So it's not the kosumi. It's not this move. G17 now. Just about everyone would want to play G17. And it's not correct. So the reason it's not correct is really interesting. H18. Ivan is saying H18. M18 is a long way away. That's not right. So actually, Ivan is right. H18, ZYF4 in Twitch is also saying H18. Omnifer Is that a name? That's that person is also saying H18. And people who said H18, J John 300 in YouTube, it's correct. Mess it up is also saying. So the difference between black playing here, which is a mistake, and playing here, is fascinating. And it's really neat. It's a kind of a position which I would make into a Tetsuji problem or a life and death problem. So it's that type of almost perfect. Very unusual to see this kind of perfect life and death problem coming up in a real game. So it was very satisfying in that way. Let's go to the wrong sequence first. So if black plays here, white will take, obviously. And black can cut white off here. Black can cut white off, but white will play here. If black connects, white will connect up like this. So that doesn't work. But black can cut white off by wedging here. So when black does that, white will play an Atari and connect. White's cut off, but white has two eyes. So something like this. So white has another second eye here. Of course, the corner is alive. Playing a Hanetsugi here, it's not really relevant. So for various reasons, like white can play the Hane here with a snapback. And this would win the game for white too. But actually, white could even just continue answering in the corner. So white could play, would probably actually play this one. So just to be safe in the corner, and black doesn't have room to live anyway. So there's various ways white can deal with that one. And it's just not working. And so when we get to this position, where black could not kill the white group, the key difference between playing G17 and not playing G17 is that if we take this exchange off the board, this exchange, and there was a black stone there, something should sort of jump out at you. A black move that can capture these white stones. So without that exchange there, there's these three stones that black can capture. Answering the wedge with H19. We're going to get to that. Okay, actually, let's do it now. So that's the point I'm making. You probably are seeing what black can do. It's F19, right? Okay, back to the question by Sukichi4, standard trickiness. What about the answer wedge with H19? And that's a good point. It's an important variation. So if I say that black can cut white off with this move, and I was showing you this variation. And the question was, what about H19 against the wedge? Looks like maybe white's going to connect up here. It doesn't work because black can push through here. And connecting, white doesn't have enough liberties to make that work. So white has to push through here. And it's a ko. Black has a lot of ko threats. White doesn't have any ko threats to speak of. So obviously black's going to win this. So like if white plays a real ko threat, I can win the game sacrificing these 7 stones, or I can save them because I also have ko threats like this. And I have plenty of ko threats. I'm going to win the ko. I have a ko threat here too. But in actual play, I would probably allow white to live because black's going to live too. So like if white did something like this, I would probably allow that group to live just because I already gained a lot of territory. I've broken up this area, which used to be a white, it was looking like a white territory. So the fact that white got into the corner to a certain degree is actually not as big as the profit I got on the top side there. And I'm winning by territory. So I'd say the territory is roughly equal if we ignore this area that's controlled by black. So this area has a good chance to become a black territory because this white group, it's actually not alive yet. So black has a good chance to complete some territory in this general area. And that would be the difference by which black is winning. So I can allow white to live. So that's why answering the wedge underneath on the first line is not working for white. And it relates with the correct answer also. So just to show you that variation once more, the real problem with this is that when we get to this position, black's really sorry that black played that exchange with this black stone. This black stone. See if I can get rid of it. Yeah. This black stone for this white stone, taking this black stone off the board. That exchange got rid of the potential for black to play here and capture the 4 white stones. So that's going to be the difference between playing at 3 immediately instead of cutting at 1 first. And it was it's an unusual strategy. I don't see it very much, but white played here. So one variation would be white playing here, since black didn't play that point. But in this case, black has enough liberties to capture the white group. So this is just a dead shape for white. And if white does stuff like this, then that sagari on the first line is still going to be useful. So I could actually play it now. And white's going to have trouble living. So this is another, like if white crawls here, that's dead. White can actually live by playing here. This is another Tetsuji problem. Shall we finish the day with this one? It's sort of actually aside the point. So I'm going to just show it. Black can connect underneath with this, because if white tries to cut black off, then the eye disappears. So it becomes a false eye. It means that white cannot take away the connection that black has. So that's another variation to it. So in the game, white played here, and I wedged. So it's the same sequence, missing the G17 stone. I don't need to play the G17 stone yet. So it's, apart from that, it's exactly the same as this sequence, where the way I can cut white off is by wedging here. It's just that it's way better not to play that 1 and 2 exchange. I can do the same thing without that exchange. If white had played here, then it would have been this ko after all. So it would have been the same ko. And this ko is good for black. I just live taking away that territory from white. And the game, white pulled back. So again, if black plays here and then here, I can cut white off. But this would allow white to live on this side. So that's how it doesn't work. Instead, I play 3 to the last. I'm not playing the cut at G17. It's important for me not to play it, because in this case, I can capture white with this stone. So that's what I'm setting up here. Or if white cuts this way, I can still capture with this move. So that's how, by not playing the cut at G17, I'm setting up this final capture. And white had no choice but to cut here, forcing me to play the cut finally. But this turned into a ko. So basically this connecting here, it's not forcing anymore. It's not forcing because it's going to be a ko. So white crawled here. And this is already a bit painful, but it's the final process of the game. And yes, so at this point, this was actually a ko threat. This is a ko threat I'm threatening to connect up at J1. If white plays there, white doesn't have any ko threats at all. White doesn't have any ko threats that he can play. So white ran out of ko threats and played one or two more moves. And the ko is resolved, basically. Like, white can start filling liberties of this group, or if white can isolate this group, white could fill liberties. It's going to be a very, very distant ko. So it's not realistically a ko anymore. Although there is a ko at this point. Like, I'm going to have a huge amount of opportunities to capture and win this ko. So it's not a realistic ko. And white curled around and I covered here. And he resigned at this point. I could make actually I've captured these 3 white stones. So the fact that this black group on the top is not isolated means that I'm pretty much free of the problem of a ko also. So the way it's captured is something I would like to show you. Let's see, I'll put up the result here. Yeah. So black won at this point, white resigned. Obviously white cannot cut here because I can play here and already I can win. And it's a bit more subtle that white cannot play here. Well, white will play there, but white cannot save the 3 stones because if white connects all the way, white's short of liberties and black can play here. This would capture the corner. And this would kill the white group also. So this would just be dead. And in this case, actually, it is relatively close ko. So white will fill here. And I only have 2 liberties left. So it's a 1-move approach ko. So if white had an infinite number of ko threats, then white would be able to capture, and then white would have to fill this liberty, and then it would be a direct ko. So it's a 1-step ko favoring black. The problem for white is that white doesn't have any ko threats to speak of, so it's just not going to work. Okay, so yes, so I was talking about the time controls earlier. It was 3 hours apiece. Actually, I was playing an opening that I prepared, so I didn't really need so much time. I think I ended up with close to an hour of time on my clock left. And my opponent got into trouble, so he used up all his time. It means it lasted 5 or 6 hours, I suppose. And so, yes, to get back to the actual finishing position, he resigned when I played this move. So on the whole, it was a good game. Like, there were a few moves that the computer didn't like. So like my knight's move here and my jump here, which actually, I sort of know why I played them. And they didn't drop my score too drastically. So I don't really think of them as a big problem for me. And then there was this move, which I was kicking myself a little bit about that move. But, that was the one move that I was less than satisfied with in this game. So on the whole, I'd say it was a fairly good game. Enjoyed showing it to everyone. My favorite move of this game was that move, the moves that just happened, like that. Finding this move, I had it prepared, and I had been waiting to play it. So more of this move than the attachment at H18. This whole sequence I had in the top was a kind of a perfect Smiggle sequence that in actual play you rarely have you don't actually have so many chances to show off a Tetsuji like this. And so it was a lot of fun. And all of this stuff I did in the center was setting it up. So there was a lot of anticipation that I was going to be playing this move, and I actually got to play it. So I'd say that was my favorite move in the game. So that was Method Up asking that question. And I'm coming to an end here. It doesn't really take time. Either you see it or you don't see it. So that's a Wild Techno asking how long it took to read the wedge. The honest answer is I don't remember, but it doesn't really take much time to find these moves. So either you have a blind spot or you see it. Professionals are supposed to be able to see these moves. So yeah, I had fun. I've been playing a lot of tournament games recently, so I will be hoping to continue with similar live streams in the near future. And thank you all for watching to the end, and I'm coming to an end with my live stream now. Don't forget to like it and sign up to my channel if you haven't done that already. And I did put a Patreon link pinned at the top of chat, so that's where people can support my channel if they want to support my channel. And in the $50 tier, there's a teaching game attached to it. So if you're interested, look into that. So thank you all, and see you next time. And goodbye.